Hello and welcome to the Big H Podcast. My name's Mike Heise and I'll be your host. It is Kibitzin with Ken Freeman today. Ken, it's great to have you along.
Well, you finally got me here.
I got you here, and you can't live without singing Hilton's praises. We usually start off with a little bit of information about your biographical information, but let us know a little bit about what's life like today in the life of Ken Freeman.
Pretty boring.
Pretty boring?
Pretty boring. I'm retired. I'm the curator at the Parma Hilton Historical Society Museum, and so that at least gets me out of the house 2 afternoons a week. Plus other times that I do tinkering around, building things for the displays and down in the basement. But other than that, it's a pretty boring life.
Pretty boring life. Explain to our audience a little bit what the title of curator encompasses and what your responsibilities are.
I'm the one that takes care of the whole building and the collection in the building. Making sure that things are clean and nothing's disappeared. I think up and build new displays for the museum, and generally try to drive the docents crazy.
So what are some of the most recent memorabilia that you've collected over there at the museum?
Recently we got a sign from Dr. Blodgett, who was one of the 2 doctors when I was growing up as a kid in the village of Hilton. His office when I was like in my early teens was on Heise Street, right next door to my grandmother's house.
Okay.
And my aunt was his secretary too. So, she would come over and kind of make sure that my grandmother and grandfather were still okay. So, but that was cool,
Now, the other day I was getting in contact with you and you're doing a display for the window. Tell us a little bit about that window display you're working on.
Okay, we did this time in the town hall. We did a display on as a replication of the Jenny Goodnow millinery shop in the village of Hilton, which was on East Avenue where the computer store is now. That building is over 100 years old.
Mm-hmm.
And the idea it came out. The idea came out. I found an entire cedar chest full of hats, just tucked away in the bottom of the cedar chest that were out there in the gallery, and said it was be a pretty neat idea for a display. So there's ladies' hats, and then we also expanded it into men's hats because we found a really, really nice silk top hat from Kleinhans of Buffalo, all in its hat box and everything like that. The hat is in perfect shape, which is amazing.
So you got the hat display going on right now.
Right.
How long have you been the curator for the museum?
Since May of 2017.
May of 2017?
Yeah.
And who was the curator prior to you?
Ed Gable and Jim Stilson.
And was that the first year incorporation into the Historical Society, or had you played other roles before that?
No, that was my first interaction at all with the Historical Society. It was, and one of the funny story that came about with that is I was hanging out at Dave Crumb's office on Wednesday nights in his little coffee flash there, and to use my best Dave Crumb imitation, one night I was sitting there talking to Chuck Nichols, and Dave comes in and he goes, "Ken, can I talk to you in my office for a minute?" And it's like, now Hilton's a small town,
right?
So whatever goes on, somebody's going to find out real quick. And it's like, what did I do that I get in trouble for now? I'm not that young anymore. How can I get in trouble? And he came into his office and sit down here. It's like the stern father kind of thing. It's like, oh no, what did I do? And he says, so we were talking the other day, and your name came up. It's like, what? Yeah, and he says we're looking for a curator for the museum. It's like, oh, cool. You interested? And it's like, well, let me think about it. But in the back of my mind, right, it's like, yeah, why not? I had retired, 6 months before, so it was a good way to get out of the house, like I said before, because otherwise I'd just be sitting there building models or whatever else.
So Dave Crum, he's the president, or excuse me, he's the Village of Hilton, Town of Parma historian.
Correct. Yeah.
And I guess, what are your responsibilities? I know how often we want to increase membership in the Historical Society. What's a way we can go about doing that? Just word of mouth, or?
Well, podcasts like this are a good way to get the word out. We're always looking for new members. We'd like to get our demographics to be more to the younger crowd, and like you, and you're, what are you, 50?
55, yeah.
Yeah. Just so that we get younger blood in there to continue the Historical Society as we go along.
I mean, Hilton is so rich in history, and I joined as a member a couple of years ago, and then I branched off and started doing these podcasts. But there's so much that you can glean just going down Main Street that you could fill a whole history class in the middle school about.
Yeah. Well, Parma Center as well.
Right.
Because Parma Center was, as Shirley Houston put in her book, it was the hub of the universe. And it really was. And, because Parma Center grew up before the village did, and that was like, Atchison came here in 1798 or something like that, I love to tell people that are visiting, just, picture what this had to have looked like, because it was called the Black North. What do you think this looked like in 1798? Because there weren't any open fields here. This was all trees and dense forest. And Hilton Parma Corners Road here was basically just an Indian trail from Ridge Road. Ridge Road was really the main drag to from to Buffalo or to Niagara Falls, actually. But,
yeah, I mean, I think I read once. I got a couple books now, and I think they said it was a 1 foot wide trail and stuff.
Yeah, picture, a whole family, because when Atchison came here, he had his wife and his 2 sons with him and everything like that, and all their possessions, and they were obviously in a wagon or something like that, probably towed by either probably an ox or something like that, and they're having to hack away trails to just get up here to where their homestead would be.
And where was that homestead?
Or you go down Hill Road and you make the curve and you go down through that gully there. It's right there right in that area where the cemetery is now.
And that's the Atchison?
That's the Atchison Cemetery. It's one of our 6 pioneer cemeteries. 6
pioneer cemeteries? Well, I'm just going to keep going along with what you said. Do you remember the other 5 pioneer cemeteries or the other families?
Yeah, there's the Wright Dunbar Cemetery down at the corner of North Avenue and Dunbar Road. And there's the Wright Cemetery. I think I said that. No, I'm sorry. It's the Smith Dunbar Cemetery. The Wright Cemetery over at the corner of Dunbar and Town Line Road. There's the Sage Knapp Cemetery on Town Line, south of Parma Center Road. Castle Cemetery, which is right up over here, across from the VFW on Peck Road, and then Hoosick up at the corner of Manitou and Ridge.
Later on in the year, I'm going to have Tom Berger on for a podcast, and I want to really explore the cemeteries and things like that with him. We're going to go back in a little bit now and going in a little bit about your family's history. You talk to me a little bit about your parents, where you were born, when you were born, and a little bit about that early life of Ken Freeman.
Well, I was born here in. I'm born in Parma. Grew up on West Avenue in Hilton, just past the what you would call the Quest School.
Mm-hmm.
From when I was growing up, that was the high school.
Okay.
It was a quarter of a mile from the school, so I always walked to school.
Mm-hmm.
My dad's side of the family, he was from down Southern Tier, down around Wellsville, Bolivar area. My mom, her whole family settled Parma Center, or were early family of Parma Center. Um, my and my triple great grandfather moved here in like 1813, somewhere in there.
Okay.
He built right there, or he bought a house from Roswell Atchison, right there at the corner of Parma Center and Hilton Parma Corners Road, where the transmission shop is.
Okay. Yep.
Yeah. And they expanded that house over the years. But actually, my mother's side of the family, 3 of my great great grandfathers all were right there in Parma Center.
Mm-hmm.
There was Chauncey Knox, who's on Parma Center down by the meeting house, and William Newton. He was the newcomer of it, as it were, because he came here in like 1845, somewhere in there, and he was where the monument shop is now.
Mm-hmm.
That was their first house. That they built that house that was there. It was started out probably as like a 4-room rubble stone log house or something like that, and it expanded into a huge house because at one time it actually housed 3 different families.
Okay.
With my great great grandmother, my great grandmother, and my grandparents were all there at the same time. Yeah, they all had their separate little parts of the house.
What did your mom and dad do for occupations?
My dad worked at Kodak. Plus he did little side jobs. He was during the summer here, especially in the spring, he had a Ford 8N tractor, and he would go and plow and disc gardens for the locals here.
Mm-hmm.
I was thinking about that when I was over here today. This is about the time of the year that the phone would start ringing back in the '60s, and the people, his regulars that wanted to have their gardens done, and he'd go off, around the end of May and plow gardens and disc them up every day. And there's probably 20, 25 different people that were regulars in this. And in the '60s, everybody around here had a vegetable garden. So,
right.
Nowadays, some do, some don't.
And what was your mom's maiden name, and what did she do?
She was an Odell.
Okay.
And she worked for, let's see, from 1964, 65, somewhere in there, until she was 88 or 89. She worked for Hamilton Manor Nursing Home.
Okay.
And we kind of joked that she finally ended up retiring from there because she was older than some of the residents, and a lot of the new aides would think that she was just one of the residents that was running around there. But she did laundry there. She started up as a part-time cook, and then somehow shifted into doing laundry and the like, probably because she couldn't very well.
But she worked there, you said, till 89 years of age?
Yeah.
And then how long did she survive?
She was almost 92 when she died.
Okay.
And that was 5 years ago.
5 years ago?
No, it's more than 5. It was like 2015, I think. Okay. 16, somewhere in there.
Yeah. And you said Dad worked at Kodak, did some work with vegetable gardens and plowing. What year did he live to?
89.
89?
Yeah, he was just a month shy of his birthday.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. And did they live in that West Avenue house up until the date of their passing?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And is that where you live now, or where do you reside?
No, I live over in Clarkson.
Okay.
I didn't want to have anything to do with with their house. It's really no bigger than the house I have now.
Yeah.
But it's different.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have wanted to live in that house. The people that bought that house are pretty cool because the guy's wife is a teacher. She teaches art.
I think I know the house you're talking about.
Her last name is Sears.
Sears. Does it have an observatory out in the front yard? Or in a big red barn, I believe.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Emily, great lady.
Yeah.
Great lady.
Yeah.
You were an only child, is that correct?
No, I had two sisters.
Oh, you had two sisters. Okay.
I had two sisters.
What are old ages, and what are they up to if they're still with us?
My older sister, she's, let's see, she was born in 48, whatever that is. She lives in West Virginia, just south of Hagerstown. And my other sister, she was born 56. And she lives in Burke, Virginia.
Okay.
I almost put a West on there. over by DC.
Okay.
She worked she worked for the federal government for 20 years in the federal court system.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
And the sister that's in West Virginia, was she employed ever? Or
she went to college to be a school teacher, and she actually taught at Northwood for like a year, I think, or something. And I got married and chased her Navy husband around the world for 20 years.
Okay.
But she mostly worked things like bookstores and places like that. Yeah.
So that one what's her name? The one at West Virginia. She's in it. What's her name? Janice. And did she marry, obviously, and have children or
no? No kids.
And then
neither one of them had kids.
Okay.
Yeah, none of us had kids.
None of you had kids. No. Now the one in Virginia, did she marry as well?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Gotcha. So there's 48, 56. What year were you born?
51.
51. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So you're in between child.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
What was that like, being the only boy in the family? I don't know if you got schooled by one or
schooled by both of them.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was. Yeah. You. I don't know. It was just. It was one of those things that was the way it was.
Yeah. Well, what was life like then, growing up in Hilton? Let's like, what you guys do for fun, or I guess the culture of Hilton in that time. I know you graduated from Hilton in 1970.
69.
Oh, 69?
69.
Okay, then I looked at the wrong year, but
my face is in there.
Yes, it is. I also found out a couple things about you were in the rifle club. Is that true?
That's right. And I also was on the golf team.
Now, that's interesting because I didn't think they had a golf team till as of recently. But tell us a little bit about that golf team, and where'd you guys play your matches and things like that.
Boy,
if you were good or were you a hack, I don't know.
Oh, I was a hack.
Okay.
I was number 6 on a 5-man team. Or was it 5 on a 4-man team? Either way, but one of my best lines that I love to use about playing golf is, for me, it's like landscaping with the wrong tools. Yeah.
Which course did you play?
I think our home course was Durand Eastman.
Mm-hmm.
That's the one that I remember we played at most. We played at I think it was Reese or Ridgemont Country Club once, which is pretty neat. That's a heck of a course. And I played 9 holes, and I think my score was 72.
Okay.
So that's how. Huh?
That's at Ridgemont?
That's at Ridgemont, yeah. So that tells you how terrible I am. I had a good short game, but I couldn't hit the ball long for anything. It would just be everywhere.
Mm-hmm. Who was your coach?
Mr. Orr.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I think he might have been around when I started going to school.
Probably was.
Was he, do you know what he taught, what subject he was? God, I want to say science, but I could be.
It was either science or social studies.
Yeah.
I don't recall for which. I pull out the yearbook. I can find it out real quick.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. He was. He was a good coach.
Uh-huh. Like, how do you coach golf? I mean, how do you coach? I mean, isn't it like you match them up? Oh, got to keep your head down. What was it like?
I don't remember a heck of a lot about it.
Did you play just 1 year? Did you play more years? Or
I think I played two,
okay.
but I don't recall for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Our team wasn't very good anyway. I don't even remember who in the world else was on it besides myself. It's another one of those ones I'd have to look at the yearbook.
Right.
Yeah.
Would they would they bus you to these courses, or did you have to
Um,
provide your own transportation?
I think Mr. Orr took us all. I don't
Oh,
remember how Orley would have done that and throw 5 sets of golf clubs in the car, but you know. And it might have been maybe somebody else drove too. I don't remember.
Going to stretch your memory. How much was a round of 9 holes if you had to go out and play?
Back in those days,
Yeah.
it was cheap.
Yeah.
Durand Eastman. I remember playing there a couple of times with my friend Mike. It's probably like $5 or
$5.
something like that.
Yeah.
Maybe even less than that. Of course, that's a county course too.
Right.
You know, so yeah.
Are county courses cheaper? They're cheaper than the private?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, municipals like that are always less money. I think now even I haven't played golf in 10 years, 12 years, something like that. And last time I played at Churchill, and I think it was like $20 then. You know, so it's not a bad deal. You know, if you consider that a country club is going to be at least double that.
Right. Rifle club, right? You were in that? Tell us a little bit about that, because it's gone by the wayside, but it's very interesting.
Yeah, that's an interesting thing that you think of now. You know, with guns in schools. It's just like, no, this doesn't happen.
Right.
The rifle range, it was a 50-foot range. The range is underneath the Henry Street School in the sub basement there, and it's still there. Amanda Dudley found it about a year ago, I think it was. And they found how you get down there. I kind of forgotten how in the world you got down to the thing,
Right.
but it was down through the boys' locker room in there, and yeah, so it's all still there. The tunnel is still there. Of course, all the other stuff is all gone, which is a shame. I'd like to know where in the world the rifles went to.
Were you a good shot? And like, what was a match like? I assume other schools also had rifle clubs, or was it just a rifle club within the school of Hilton?
It was just within the school. I know there were other schools that had rifle clubs at the time, and they competed against each other, but we never did. We just shot for score for ourselves. I guess I was pretty good. I've got nice patches that say that I was. And it's translated over. I still shoot today in a league at the Conservation Club of Rockport called Sporter Rifle. It's the same basic format. The only difference is where junior, like when we were in school, it was you started out in the prone position shooting, and then after you advanced and got all your badges from that, then you would go to kneeling, and then you go to sitting, and last would be offhand, and we never got that far, or I never got that far. But so it's still an interesting hobby.
And do you shoot primarily with pistol? Was it with rifle, or is
It's
it
a
with
rifle?
Both? Okay.
Just strictly 22 caliber rifle, indoor, 50-foot. Sporter rifle can be either open sight or scope. That was the difference also with the rifle club, because it was iron sight. Looking back on it, did a little research when I started with sporter rifle. The rifles were really, really good. They were basically a match rifle for the U.S. Army rifle team at one time.
Okay.
Or same idea.
Right. Did you ever do any hunting with it, or just sport shooting? I mean, not sports shooting.
I would go out hunting in the fall when I was a kid, because you could around here.
Small game or
small game,
yeah.
Mostly pheasant. I would go for. I think I got one out of the whole time I would go out.
Did you eat it, or you just kind of like?
We would eat them.
And what did they taste like?
Just like chicken.
Don't they say that about everything? Frog legs taste like chicken.
Yeah, no, that's basically what it is. Because it's just it's probably I don't remember anymore, but I would say it's maybe a little more because of the kind of things that a pheasant would eat. That maybe a little healthier for you. I don't know.
How did you prepare it? Like, I'm obviously got to pluck the feathers. Was it, cook it over a fire?
If I got one, I would hand it to my dad and let him do it. He knew how because when he grew up in the 20s and 30s, he did a lot of hunting.
Mm-hmm.
I've still got 2 of his shotguns from when he was growing up. So,
what was his first name? Franklin. Going back to, I guess, Hilton. Talk a little bit about your elementary education. Do you remember that? Which building you were in? Any of the teachers way back when?
Oh, I was in every one of the school buildings that's around now until you get to the the piece that's in there between Hazel Jenkins and Jonathan Underwood, whatever they call that now.
Yep.
I wasn't in there because I was built way after me, and of course I wasn't in the new high school. But every other school here I was in.
Okay. What was Quest like when you were? Was it the high school at that time?
That was the high school.
Okay. 9th through 12th, or?
It also had junior high at about the time that I was there too. And they were starting to build Merton Williams about that same time.
Okay.
I was the first class that went through Merton Williams.
Okay.
As an 8th grade class.
Okay.
And we actually did half of the year we did over at the high school because it wasn't done yet. Even when we moved in, the pool and things like that weren't finished yet. So I don't know whether they ran out of money or whether they just took more time than what they thought.
Right.
Yeah.
What was that like in terms of? Was it chaotic as a student? Like was it disjointed, or did you guys handle it pretty good? I mean, this is the late 60s.
We handled it pretty good.
Yeah.
It was what it was. So yeah, he went to school and came home.
Right. Yeah. Did you have any jobs you did during school, during high school or middle school?
I had a paper route. I had a paper route with the Rochester Times Union from, let's see, what was I? I think I started in 8th grade, maybe 9th, and went all the way through until I graduated. From, I think, 30, 35 subscribers to 70, 75 by the time I got out of school.
And you delivered from your bike, or did you do a walking route?
Started out with my bicycle, and then when I got my learner's permit, then I started driving the car. And, so it made it a lot easier because papers get heavy after a while.
Yeah, they do.
Even the afternoon paper, which was not anywhere near as big as the Democrat and Chronicle, it's about the size of what Democrat and Chronicle is now. Which is nothing. But it was cool.
That's cool. Yeah. Now in high school, I noted. Did you also be involved in the press club? Is that true?
No.
Okay. How about marching band?
I was in marching band.
Okay. What instrument did you play?
I played saxophone.
Okay.
And I also was in the concert band. That was, I guess that would have been my minor when I was in school. I played saxophone.
And what marching band you said too, right? Or
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because when I was looking at the yearbooks and stuff, the marching band was enormous.
Oh yeah.
Made a lot of trips to I think Japan. I read.
Yeah.
It was
right.
It was happening. Let's put it that way.
Oh yeah. Yeah. It was. Yeah. Mr. Lucy built up quite the band there when he came on the scene. And yeah, we went to State Fair every year that I was in school. Never won the states. There was always something that happened, and especially one year we we were told we won, and I can't tell you which year this was. It was either 67 or 68. And a couple of the other people I know that would say the same thing. We were told we won, and then a half an hour later they came and said, no, there was a scoring error.
Oh, of course.
Yeah. So the traditional one that won got the trophy again. So, and we competed against schools like Haverling of Bath and Holly, and I forget who in the world else there was. Those were the two big ones that I can remember.
Oh, I mean, I always think, fall, I think marching band. I was also noticing that, how many people do you think you graduated with approximately? Do you remember?
Graduating class was like 135.
135. And for 135, I mean, they had National Honor Society, Enzians, Pep Club, Coin Club, Drama Club, FFA, Future Farmers America. I'm going to read them off. Future Teachers of America, Art Club, Chess Club, Health and Careers Club, Spanish, Latin, German Club, Library Club. I mean, I can go on and on. I mean, they're for, a small class. It looked to me, looking back on it, there were quite a activities that you could become involved in.
Oh, yeah.
Tutorial Ski Club, Rifle Club, Varsity Club. I don't know. It looked like a lot of good, clean fun there going on at Hilton Central High School.
Yep.
Tell us a little bit about, what was the clothing trends like there in the 60s and 70s? And did you adhere to any of those trends?
No. I was kidded all through school, and the class will. There was something in there because I wore white socks.
Okay.
And nobody wore white socks back then. There was something about that. I forget exactly how it was. I would continue the trend of wearing white socks. I wear gray ones now, so that's fine.
In terms of the classes that you did, what were your strengths, or what classes did you like?
Recess.
And lunch.
Study hall was good.
Yeah.
Band was okay. I was never a good musician, but I liked it. What was I good in?
Well, you don't have to be good. Maybe just enjoyed being in that class. Any teachers that, stick in your head, like, good or bad?
The ones that stick in my head are the math teachers, because I was terrible at math. It was Mrs. Sillick, who taught algebra, and she had me for 4 years to get through elementary algebra and intermediate algebra. That shows you how bad I was. And Mr. Williams did geometry. He was an interesting teacher because he's still around.
Oh yeah.
The funny thing was, a few years ago, my best friend's son texted me from school one day, and he says, "Do you remember Mr. Williams?" Said, yeah. Taught geometry, and he drove a '67 GTO. And he says, "Yeah, he's my substitute teacher today." So, yeah, that was kind of funny. Hey, he's still around.
All right. Oh yeah, he was there when I went through school too. Yeah. Steve Williams, right? His first name's Steve.
Yeah.
Did you like cars? You're a car fan, car fiend?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I at one time I had 2 or 3 different performance cars. I built a '69 Ford Ranchero.
Okay.
It was a fun car to drive around. It kept breaking down because I wasn't as good as I thought I was at that stuff. Even though I was working as a mechanic at that time, it was just, it just didn't want to cooperate sometimes. And then I had a '71 Torino Cobra.
Okay.
429 in it. That was my big car.
Okay.
I don't know where it is now.
You don't know where it is, huh?
No, I sold it a lot of years ago to a guy from East Bloomfield.
Okay.
Where it is now, I have no idea. It needed work when I sold it to him, so never know. It might still be around somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
Hopefully it is.
Yeah. Mechanic. Where did you work there?
I worked at Sears.
Okay.
Here at Grease Ridge Center.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of fell into the job.
Mm-hmm.
Was looking for something to do just part time after I'd been working as a salesman and selling appliances and found that I was a terrible salesman.
Okay.
A couple of my friends worked at Sears and they said, hey, they're always looking for people for, winter, for the fall season to, bust tires and all that. So I applied, got the job, and somehow or other stuck it out for almost 39 years.
39 years.
39 years.
What was it like being a mechanic at Sears for that many years? I mean, that's a pretty general question, but do they treat you well and stuff like that?
The pay was, okay.
Mm-hmm.
The best thing that Sears had going for it as far as that goes was they had their profit sharing to start out with. And when I got working full time and got vested there, I asked one of the old heads that was there, I said, what's the story on this and should I get into it? And he says, yes, absolutely. And I'm glad I followed his advice because it's made a nice little nest egg.
Good. And you said you retired in 2017, was it?
16. Yeah,
okay.
Just before Labor Day.
Okay. What was Hilton like in those years that you were growing up, from age 6 to age 18 and stuff?
Age 6, I hardly remember.
Yeah. Whenever, like you have that when you start vividly remembering whether it's your high school years or middle school years, like what was Hilton like? I mean, I can look at pictures.
Very rural.
Mm-hmm.
It still is now, but it's grown. It has grown up so much. Somebody will say, "Well, I live on this street," and it's like, "Where's that?"
Mm-hmm.
And they'll tell you, "Oh, okay, that was so and so's farm."
Mm-hmm.
Boy, growing up, lots of apple trees.
Mm-hmm.
And from the stories, there's like half the apple trees when I was growing up that there was back in the 30s when my mom was growing up here. It's 1934. There was a big freeze and it killed off half. And it was one of those ones where it was like in the 40s and 50s one day, and then the temperature just fell, went to like minus 20 or something like that. And the old timers said that you could actually hear the trees explode because the sap just froze and just blew the trees apart. They lost like half the apple trees around here. There was like 100,000 of them that just were gone. But it's kind of interesting. I listened to Dave and Tom, they're talking about things that went on in the village right at the same time that I was growing up. It's like, I never knew about that.
Right.
So there's like a dividing line from where you live that, you would know different things about what was going on. It's just one of those interesting little things that, okay.
When I was doing a little bit of research about the 60s, you graduated in 69. Kind of a tumultuous time there with President Kennedy and MLK and I Have a Dream. I know sometimes people say, well, do you remember where you were when this occurred? Some of those events, like, are there any things that you vividly remember from that decade of the 60s?
Well, I remember when Kennedy got shot because I was homesick with the flu that day, and I just happened to have the TV on, and which one of the newscasters, they broke in and the whole video thing there from Dallas, President Kennedy's been shot. I was like, whoa. I remember course, I always, you remember the moon landing.
Mm-hmm.
That was pretty neat. I don't remember what I was doing that day, but
Mm-hmm.
you know, I think the one thing that I sort of remember with my grandmother, because she was born in the late 1880s,
Mm-hmm.
something like that. So she went through from seeing the first flights and then seeing somebody landing on the moon, and she was like, kind of like, well, isn't that something?
Right.
That kind of thing.
I also found out that first man on the moon, that was in July, like 69, Apollo 11. Did you know that President Nixon made a trip through Hilton in 1971?
No.
Yeah, there's a picture in a book with Mr. Skinner. I don't know if he was the supervisor or
Oh, probably L. Skinner.
yeah.
Yeah,
And there was
he was the county sheriff.
okay,
Yeah.
and there was his motorcade, and then you saw little kids with signs and everything. And of course, we know what happened with Watergate and everything, but
Right.
yeah, he made his way through Hilton.
Okay.
Yeah, which is pretty cool.
I didn't know that. When in 71? What was it?
It said, I got 1971 here. I don't want to say it was in August. I forget. I should have put the month, but yeah, it's in one of the books. I got a book from Mike Wheelahan that I was researching the other day.
Okay.
And of course, we had our first troops in Vietnam in '65.
Right.
And then you went into the '70s. So, what more were like the businesses like in Hilton? I mean, you brought up the Apple business, right? I know that was big. How else do you recall or do you remember our Main Street or our transportation and what Hilton was like?
Well, the thing that I tell visitors now is we've got a whole display now in the Stilson Gallery on just exclusively the businesses of Hilton.
Mm-hmm.
At one time, there was 4 grocery stores, and I joke with that because that's one of each religious denomination, which is fairly true. There's 2 hardware stores at that time, 2 dentists, at least 2 barber shops,
Mm-hmm.
3 gas stations, a drugstore, of course, and a bank. We had the State Bank of Hilton.
Mm-hmm.
We thought that everybody probably thought that was the greatest thing in the world. It's the State Bank of Hilton, one branch. Well, actually, it was 2 after the fire in '65.
Mm-hmm.
Like 1970, they branched out over into North Greece. Let's see, what else was there?
Do you have any restaurants and stuff? Hotels?
Yeah, well, there was the Arlington Hotel.
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't have been allowed in there. Before the fire, there was the pleasure shop, which was there was 2 soda. Well, put it this way: there's 2 soda fountains. There was the pleasure shop and there was the candy kitchen. They were right across from each other in the village, which is kind of funny.
Mm-hmm.
The pleasure shop also sold magazines and comic books and things like that as well. Plus, I don't remember what else they had, but that was always that's kind of an interesting one too. You got 2 soda fountains, one right across from each other. The candy kitchen was the one where the high school kids all wanted to hang out.
Yeah. Was that Nick and Kula? Is that
Nick and Kula? Yeah. I was only in there a couple of times. I never got to go down to the village to the candy kitchen. A lot of my friends did because they were doing. My best friend Mike, he worked at the IGA across the street. So the kids when they get off, because he was a banker, they go over there and spend their money that they made working for the IGA.
Uh-huh.
Let's see, what else was there? Well, of course, we had the GLF, which was the feed store. Tractor implement store. Lisso's had sold case tractors down where Napa is now. Let's see.
I want to go back. You said there were 4 grocery stores.
4 grocery stores.
Can you name them? And like you were teasing about they handle different religious affiliations?
Well, there was the red and white,
Mm-hmm.
um, and I think right next to that was Herb's, and I don't remember whether he was affiliated with any specific one or not.
Uh-huh.
Across the street, there was Hart's grocery store at the corner of South Avenue in Maine, and that became Sassoon's bakery
Yep.
about the time of the fire. And then across the street somewhere there was another one, and I don't remember where that was. And then later on, of course, there was the IGA that was at the corner of East Avenue and Hovey Street where the bank is now.
Mm-hmm. You brought up the fire, and that is always. I teach third grade, and the kids just when they hear about the fire, explain your remembrances of that day and how it affected everybody.
I don't even remember how normally we first heard about it, but it was probably a phone call or something like that. And being on a Sunday, my mom had probably gone to the nursing home to work, and that may be how we got the heads up on it. But Dad took off and went to the village, and we didn't see him again until like 8 o'clock at night. I think he was probably over at the Methodist church, making coffee and sandwiches and stuff, and he handed it out to the firefighters.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I don't think I ever even asked what he was doing.
Mm-hmm.
Just like, yeah, okay, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That's what you did, I guess.
Right. So you got the museum. What other attractions does Hilton have nowadays? Because I can think of a couple of things, like the Apple Festival.
Yeah, Apple Festival is big. They got the Main Street Car Show now, which has grown quite a bit. What else?
Oh, the carnival. I think I always liked the carnival.
Yeah. I
mean, it's changed over the years. But.
Oh yeah. The carnival was always interesting. The funny part was that my folks would always figure out when my dad was going to take vacation from Kodak, and they would plan their vacation. We would get away the week of the carnival.
Mm-hmm.
So I hardly ever got to go to it.
Okay.
And we'd always go camping in the Adirondacks or something like that.
So the Adirondacks, you camped as a family and stuff?
Yeah. Had a 16-foot travel trailer that was not big enough, but it was what you had.
Did you do any fishing up there?
Yeah. I remember one time we went to I think we were at Moffett Beach, but I'm not sure. But we were fishing, and my little sister Mary Ann, she started catching sunfish, and it was like fishing off a dock, and she just keep bringing them in, probably way undersized or something like that. But yeah, we fished. I went hiking one time with another guy up there, and I forget which one of the parks it was we were at, but got lost for about 2 hours or more. I heard about it afterwards, and I heard about it from my folks for the next 50 years.
What are some of your hobbies or interests that you do now? I mean, I know you enjoy being the curator at the museum, but if you wanted to relax, what does Ken Freeman do?
I build models.
Okay.
I build this. That's part of how I got into the Historical Society gig. Is I build. I'm interested in model railroads now. I started out when I was a kid. I built model cars. Then I built model airplanes for a while. And then I went back to model cars. And then I got into radio controlled airplanes. And I like building the things. And again, it's one of those things that I like building them, but it was terrible at flying.
Okay.
I could stooge it around the sky, but taking off and landing were a challenge.
Yeah.
I learned how to fix them really quick.
Did you? After they crashed?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But then a couple of my friends got me into the same ones that were also into flying. Got me into model railroading. So, and I like just building models more than even running trains around or anything like that. Right now, I'm working on building replicas of some of the buildings from the village.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, I finished up a train station that it looks. If you stand back about 50 feet, it looks sort of like the train station from Hilton.
Right.
Well, it's actually it's pretty close. It's actually pretty close. And I finished that up last year. I'm starting to work now on one that when it gets through, it's going to look pretty much like Z's.
Okay.
It's got that same roof line and everything like that. So that'll be fun. That'll be an interesting one.
I mean, take me into, like, how does that start? How does that project begin? Do you just do a scale drawing or, supplies? How do you go about doing that?
Research what you're going to build, and then see if you can find a kit so that you can just build the kit. And that's how the train station worked out. Is I found one that I kept comparing what the kit looked like to what I know from the few photographs that we have of the train station, and it said, it's not perfect, but it'll work, and so it's worked out.
God, that sounds neat.
Yeah. I tried to make a diorama of the whole thing based on a couple of pictures I had from a big snowstorm of '77, and there was a picture. It's over in the museum now of they had a snowplow come through, and the snow. And I started doing the measuring on it, and the snow was at the top of the snowplow, and this is one of the big old Russell snowplows. And I figured out what the height on that was, like 13-foot high snowbanks.
Incredible.
Yeah. Well, that's like, whoa, and that was a heck of a snowstorm. Yeah. It's like I was working in Victor at the time, and it took me 3 days before I could get home.
No kidding.
Yeah.
No kidding. Wow.
I stayed with a friend of mine up in Spencerport until because all like the dip up here by the museum, that whole spot there where that creek runs through, filled completely full of snow. The story that they tell is they brought a snowblower from the airport over here to clear that out. They had a couple of workers with metal poles. They'd sit there, and the snowblower would come in with that in there a little bit, chew away, and then they'd sit there and they'd probe to try and find cars that were in there, and then they'd take another bite in and come back out again.
No kidding. How long did it take them to clear that area?
A couple of days. At least a couple of days. It was crazy.
Who do you think has been the most influential person in your life?
In some ways, I would say my mom. She was a really cool person. She that's one of those things that later on, especially after my dad died, I was there a lot, and she was a lot of fun to hang out with. She could tell a good story, or at least give a good quip afterwards.
Yeah. Was she a good cook? You said she.
Yeah. She was a tomboy.
No,
she was a tomboy.
Yeah.
She liked playing baseball more than anything else. There's some great little stories with her. My sister tells us one, and I never heard it myself, but it's one of those things that she liked her farm animals, and she was in 4-H and of course she went to the Parma Union #1, which is right around the corner from their house. And of course, the school teacher would ring the bell, and my grandmother would yell at her, "Margie, time to go to school. And then you hear the second bell, and now it's really time to go. And mom couldn't run cross lots over to the school, which would have been like, you're right there.
You're right there.
You had to run down to the corner and then down to the school. So that was that's one of those funny ones. The one that, and this is another one of those things, and the one about that. These are the stories I love to tell people when they're at the museum. The other good one was I'm talking to her one day, and it's my grandfather ran the farm there, and he said, "So what did Grandpa grow?" And she goes, "Mostly rocks." You live here, so you're right in the same area, so if you don't find a rock around Parma Center, then you're not trying hard enough.
Right. Any qualities you take from your mom? You could say, I got that from, say, Margie? Was her Margie?
Margie. Her name was Margaret, but Grandma called her Margie.
Yeah.
And everybody else called her Aunt Peg.
Okay.
I don't know why.
Yeah.
But maybe your sense of humor.
Yeah. Well, I think you got a good sense of humor, buddy. You think you got that from mom?
Some of it.
Yeah.
Well, my dad had a good sense of humor too. Yeah. He loved hearing a good joke, but he couldn't tell from what the heck. Because he knows you have to try and sanitize something.
Right.
Yeah. He liked a good story, and I think I got my storytelling ability from him.
Okay.
Or at least I like to think so.
Nice. If you could go back and you could have dinner with anybody in history, who would it be? Could be a relative. It could be a historical figure.
Oh, wow.
You name it.
Oh, gosh, I thought about that one day. There's a few that would be kind of interesting. Ben Franklin comes to mind.
Mm-hmm.
If I could get into the Back to the Future DeLorean, maybe just go back and visit with the relatives from here, from the 1830s.
Right.
Just pop into because my great grandfather Knox owned the general store down here at the corner. Just walk in and better be wearing the right kind of clothes, because otherwise you. Yeah.
Oh, really?
Well, I mean, if you walked in with a pair of jeans and a shirt on like you got today, you would stand out as like
underdressed.
Differently dressed.
Okay.
Not underdressed, just differently dressed. It's kind of like when Michael J. Fox in Back to the Future, because he's wearing the vest, and everybody thought it was a life jacket. But it would be interesting to go back and just see what they were doing for a day or two. And just tell them that, passing through, heading to Ohio or wherever, And I just thought I'd stop and see what was happening here. That kind of thing.
Anything on a bucket list for you, or you feel content and you got your
as far as activities I'd like to do, well, I'd like to go back to. We went camping at Yellowstone one year when I was growing up. I was probably about 13 years old at the time. I'd like to go back to Yellowstone. I started writing a list of that one time. I'd like to drive a tank.
No kidding.
Yeah, I think that'd be kind of cool.
Not in battle though, just driving.
No, just there was a company. I think they're still in business now in Minnesota or Wisconsin somewhere up there that had a thing. It was called strangely enough, drive a tank. And it let you run the thing around the third course and pay extra to crush a car. I think it'd be kind of cool.
Sure. Why not?
What guy doesn't want to crush a car? Drive a tank over a car. Yeah.
On my podcast, I ask people what makes Hilton unique. I mean, I know it's changed over the years, but you've lived here your entire life. What makes us special?
That it's still a small town. My friend Jim says that because he grew up in Vermont, and it was let's see where he grew up, Rutland, I think it was, or something like that. It's a fairly big town, and he lives now over on Manitou Road, and he always jokes about that he'd go somewhere and see somebody in the village and go, "Oh, I saw this guy." Yeah, I know him. I know him. I know him. I know him. You know, and he'd just kind of shake and go, "Boy, this is a small town."
Right.
Yeah, but it is. It's even for as big as we are now. It's still got a good small town flavor to it.
I agree. I ask, and I don't know if you can get three words to describe Hilton. I mean, you said small town flavor, but if you could encapsulate it in one or two words, what would it be? We're just about done here, I promise.
Quaint, maybe. I don't know. You know. It's definitely changed over the years. You know, and it's kind of sad to see because at one time, like I say, you had two hardware stores. You didn't have to run to Greece to Lowe's to buy a bucket of paint. You go down to Shorty Stoddard's and get the paint there. I don't really go into the village all that much anymore, so it's kind of hard to really put a definition on it.
Right.
Right. When I come over to the museum, I don't even drive through the village. But like I say, it's still got a good small town flavor to it. It may not be to where everybody knows your name, but but if you get in trouble, they're going to find out about it pretty quick.
Right.
It'll be around. Of course, social media does some of that for you.
Sure does. Are you on social media?
Just on Facebook.
Yeah.
I don't care for any of the other ones. It's boring.
Anything I didn't ask you that you want to bring across?
No. Not that I can think of. Other than I got to put in my plug for the museum.
Absolutely, go ahead.
We're open now Sundays from 2 to 4 p.m. Except for the major holidays. We won't be open for Mother's Day and all the Mother's Day, Father's Day, and the major holidays. We won't be open for that. And we'll be open through Thanksgiving. We've got a lot of stuff for people to see. The focus is more or less on what life was like back in the day. And I'm trying to move the back in the day up to the 50s now, just so that it's. Do
you have a favorite part of the museum? A favorite display, or it's hard to put a thumb on it?
It's the one that I'm working on at the time that's my favorite.
Good answer.
But it's I've made it change a lot in the 7 years now that I've been there, or almost 7. It's the little story that sticks in my mind all the time about it. When I first was asked to come here, I emailed a friend of mine and told him about it. He's like, "Oh, that's pretty cool." And he was living in Bergen at one time and then moved to Thousand Islands. But not long after I started there, I found a website for another museum. And I won't say who because I don't want to throw him under the bus. But I sent him the link to it because it was one where I thought maybe he would be interested in. And he replied back that he looked at the pictures for this. He and his dad had been there, he said, probably 10 or 15 years before that. And it looked like it had never changed from that. And to me, that's not the way a museum needs to be. It needs to constantly be evolving, keep people so they'll come back and see different things. And I don't want to hear somebody say that, "Oh, I was here 3 years ago and everything looks exactly the same." That means I haven't done what I should be doing.
Right.
That's the big challenge. there's a lot of other things that I want to do there. I just sometimes just don't have the time to get it done with. And I'll start working on one display, and then I'll lose focus. And oh, look, I got to, it's like squirrel, but it's all interconnected. The various parts, and that's the idea is also to get the flow so that people get an idea of what things were like here in the village or any village. Some of it's kind of generic, and others it focuses a lot closer on the town and the village. And we just got the big wood Arlington restaurant sign from off the new Arlington. Hard to believe that because that was 69. And that started the whole thing with redoing the wall and the gallery so that it all reflects the businesses of the village. We even had a bowling alley at one time. A bowling alley and a movie theater. Well, actually, we've still got a bowling alley, don't we?
We have Pleasure Lanes, but what was the old time bowling alley?
It was 4 lanes, I believe. And it was building. It's not there anymore, but it was right next to Z's on the west side of there. It started out it was a movie theater until the 50s, and then they closed down the movie theater and turned it into a bowling alley. My brother-in-law was actually a pin setter there when he was in high school.
There when they dropped the things down and they manually had to.
Yeah, he did it all manually. Tried to get him to write down his stories of his adventures of being a pin setter, but he hasn't done it.
And done it yet.
Yeah. That's the other thing is we try to get the older people. Well, you're doing it too with the podcast. Get people to tell the stories of what it was like when they were growing up. While the memories are still relatively fresh.
Right. And I do. I welcome anybody that wants to come on. I mean, I've been plucking away people that I know are involved in the fray, but I'm willing and able to get all of this down. You got documentation, history, and Dave Crum has so much in his mind.
Oh yeah.
That you want to get it all out, so you can preserve it digitally. And I know John Foster is really into that.
Yeah. Tommy as well.
Oh yeah,
Tom Berger. Oh my word! If you ever want to know the family history of any family in this town, you'll know it.
Well, I've been trying to tie him down. He's been out of town here, then he's out of town there. But he's very nice. He's always like, I'd love to be on. I'm going to be in town after such and such a date. So I'm looking forward to that. And I know he Dave Crum is at the community center on Wednesday nights, I think.
Right. Yeah.
From 7 to 9, is that?
Somewhere in there, I guess. I haven't been down there quite a while.
And he always talks about they have a roundtable discussion there, and the boys get there and they rehash old stories.
He's got his regulars down there.
Well, listen, Ken, it's really been a pleasure having you on the podcast. There's a lot of things I learned from you that I think we could even branch off into more discussion about. But in terms of having you here, this has been, Mike Heise with Ken Freeman, the curator of the Parma Museum. Kibitzin with Ken. Ken, you can sign off any way you want, but otherwise, that's pretty much where I'm coming from.
Well, if you think of other questions, you know where I am.
I know where you are because I could basically throw a rock to it. So.
Yeah. It was like, okay, where does he live? And it's like, by the way, how old is this house?
I believe it's 1929 it was built, and I forget the people that had it before us, but then the Baird family had it before we did. And so, 1929.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, if you go 20 feet that way, you're going to run into a cellar that, it's kind of scary, but it's an
all rubble stone.
Yeah, all rubble stone.
Yeah.
But it's been a nice homestead for us for about 18 years. So.
My great uncle in 1938, the greatest name for a kid, and probably sailed him in the wrong ways. But my great uncle, his name was Isaac Newton Odell. Yeah. But we always called him Uncle Newt. But he was a photographer, and he worked for Defender Chemical, which is like the competitor of Kodak's. He was an amateur photographer. In 1938, he walked around here with my other great uncle, Gurdon, and he took pictures of a lot of the houses from around Parma Center. I'm not sure whether he took a picture of this one or not.
Yeah.
But it's like, that would be somebody else I want to go back and say, dude, take a picture of that one.
Maybe you could go to dinner with that person.
Yeah. Well, I remember him.
Right.
Because he was still alive when I was growing up. He lived over in Cobb's Hill when I was a kid. Quite the house. It was like a Tudor house. Dave tells us, I don't remember exactly when this was, but he went to an estate sale at that house. I've got a couple of pictures. He apparently was a good gardener. The gardening genes grew well in the Odell family, and Newton apparently was pretty good with flower gardens.
Well, you've been pretty good bringing history to us, so keep up the good work over there at the Town Hall, Parma Museum, and you're welcome anytime here on the Big H Podcast.
Well, thanks a lot, Mike.
Thank you.